Okay, here's the thing. The XM4 is what happens when an audio company actually takes the intended use case of a headphone seriously. This is an excellent travel headphone. Honestly, a lot of the build and a lot of the features, mainly the construction and the actual user experience, reminds me a lot of the Bose QC35s. Not so much the Bose 700s. This actually feels like more of a succession to that headphone than actual 700s did. So there's this weird thing with using a headphone that is like the handling of it, like the actual tangible feeling and experience of gripping and moving around and wearing a headphone, and how easy it is to manipulate with your hands and how comfortable it is to wear on your head and how easy it is to put in the case. All of that kind of collectively goes into what people generally call the user experience. But there's some weird tangibility aspect where some things are just more pleasing to use than others. I have no idea how to exactly put this into words, but I'm sure that you know what I mean. Like, you might use one product of any genre and it just feels better than other products under the same purpose. So I'll leave kind of an example here with the AirPods Max, which I have reviewed. I'll link that in the description down below. The AirPods Max is a wonderfully built headphone. It's solid, it's got metal construction, it feels dense. It honestly feels really high quality in a way that this doesn't. But this feels like a much more enjoyable travel headphone than the AirPods Max does. I always kind of viewed the AirPods Max as like an in-office, in-home type of thing, not really something you'd want to pull out on a train or a plane, mostly because it doesn't pack up and move well like the XM4 does and like the Bose QC35 did. Now, is this a weird way of saying that this isn't built as well as the AirPods Max? Yeah, it's not. But I would much rather take this on a plane or a train because it's fast, it's easy. This type of plastic construction, while it doesn't feel like super high quality like the AirPods Max will with all that metal, this plastic is actually probably tougher than you might think. This will probably withstand drops a lot better than the AirPods Max probably would, mostly because it's, quite a bit lighter, so it doesn't have as much momentum hitting the ground. And for its intended use, I actually consider the construction of this to be totally appropriate for what it's meant to be used for. There's one feature that I wish it did have, which it doesn't, which is when you take this headphone off your head, I wish the pads would lay flat downwards so that you could just put them on the desk flat. They do lay flat, but it's the other way. So if you put them straight down like this without turning them over, they're going to be laying on the backs, which is going to wear down the plastic over time. Now, one benefit of the swivel in this direction is that it will kind of lay flat like this. Even though me personally, I actually find this fit to be a little bit more comfortable than the downward one. Kind of just puts a weird pressure on my neck. That might kind of wear down over time as you kind of break the headphones in. But I do wish it was swiveled both directions, and I'm not quite sure why it doesn't. The plastic for the ear cups and the yokes are a little bit different. This is more of just kind of a general plastic feeling, whereas the actual cup itself has more of a soft touch plastic. Now, the inside of the cup is actually a little bit weird because they do right in the center of this. I'm not even sure if you can kind of make that out, but there is a little bit of a bulge right in the center. This reminds me a lot of the Drop Panda, and I'm not exactly sure what that is, but if you have weird shaped ears, you might actually kind of feel that. Though I think for most people, they're not going to feel that too much. And then you have an entire feature set, which is really what kind of defines this as a travel headphone. And that feature set is active noise cancellation, of course, Bluetooth, but no aptX support. Then you have the pass-through audio mode or the transparency audio mode. You've got custom EQs that you can apply in the settings. They have different types of active noise cancellation. It's a pretty versatile device. The ANC they say is best in class, and it might be because it's pretty good. I think this kind of depends on your particular ear shape and kind of the environment that you're in, because this blocks out certain things a lot better than it does others. For example, I went on a ferry ride to the San Juan Islands up in kind of the northern areas of Washington State, and this blocked out the ferry perfectly. Like, it was almost dead silent. It's really impressive. But I feel like this blocks out a lot of the drone type noises. So if you're in a ferry or an airplane or a car, this is going to do just fine. It's really quiet. There's a caveat to this. Even with the noise cancellation off, this has a very chambered, closed sound. It's a lot of pressure sounding. And I actually think that the noise cancellation on is more pleasing for me than the noise cancellation off, for whatever reason. Even though I can hear a little bit of amplifier noise from it and a little bit of hissing, and I can hear that the active noise cancellation is on in a quiet environment, I'd much rather have it on than off with this particular headphone just because it is so closed down sounding. Now, a lot of the features are here on kind of the side of the actual ear cup themselves. So you can swipe up and down for volume up and down, swipe forward and back for next track and previous track, play, pause by pressing. I don't love this system. And the reason why I don't love this system is that it's extremely vague, and I would almost always prefer to actually just go to my phone. And in my opinion, that means that this feature set sort of failed. It works, but it's not something that I can 100% rely on like I can just going to my phone. And it doesn't seem any easier, and in fact takes more thought process for me than to actually just go to my phone and change it. Now, I much rather would have preferred some physical buttons or at least some little small bumps to let you know that you're in the right area for the right thing, because it doesn't always activate where you think it might activate. And you kind of have to search around a little bit in order to find it. Also, the volume up and the volume down, it's not really a big deal, but you don't really have a lot of granular control like you can by actually manipulating it on your phone. It kind of just jumps up or it kind of just jumps down, similar to actually using the buttons rather than the actual volume interface on your phone's menu. Now, speaking of buttons, it does have a custom button that you can assign to certain functions. Overall, other features like the battery life are actually really excellent and definitely class leading, I think, for this type of headphone. Now, the sound quality here is a little bit disappointing. For $350, similar to all of the Bluetooth options right here, if you just go with a wired headphone, you're probably going to get better sound for cheaper, but it's going to lack a lot of the features that this has. So these headphones have to get a little bit of leeway in terms of actual sound quality when you're considering what they're capable of doing. Now, sound quality here for me and just my preferences is not as good as the 700, but better than the Sennheiser Momentums and better than the AirPods Pro. I think the AirPod Max sounds better than all of those, but it's also quite a bit more expensive, and it's not nearly as good of a travel companion as I think this is. Now, I think where I ultimately define the importance of the sound quality here is not that high, mostly because all the areas that I would actually end up using this headphone in, I probably am not going to be focusing on the sound quality in general. But that use case is different from the reality of the sound signature. So the sound signature here is variable via the app, but the stock sound signature that you get out of it is just kind of a bassy, warm, V-shaped, typical headphone experience. It doesn't really provide a lot in terms of more audiophile aspects, like it doesn't have super great imaging. It doesn't have really good sound staging. It just kind of provides a warm, kind of more general listening experience. Now, I do prefer the Bose because they feel a little bit more kind of mid-range and upper focused and not so much focused in the bass. They are, but not as much as this. And this is definitely got a heavy emphasis in the bass response. And most of this bass is really featured in the mid-bass department, so you get sort of a boxy and bloated experience. Not quite as boxy sounding and as closed off sounding as something like the Momentum, but also not as clean as something like the Bose 700. So this sound signature, while it's not really tailored to me, I think might be tailored to a lot of people. A lot of people just want to hear kind of the rhythm in the music. They want movies to feel impactful, and this is really good at delivering that. So this sound quality, if you take it out of the equation, this type of sound signature is fine when you're out and about. When you're on a plane, when you're, traveling in a car, something like that, I think this is fine. And that really goes with just about any of these headphones. That gets a little bit less true as you get higher and higher in cost, because you're not just paying for the travel aspects, because those travel aspects are available on other headphones. For example, the XM4 is sort of on the upper end of mid-range for these Bluetooth headphones, and the AirPod Max is at the top end of kind of mobile Bluetooth headphones like that. So I had to be really critical of that. Still critical, but a little bit less so of something like an XM4 or Momentum or Bose 700. And I think you definitely have to calculate that use case matched with the sound quality. So for what this is intended for, I'm not super disappointed in the sound signature, though I don't think that it's going to be, like most of these headphones, for audiophiles. I still think that a Drop Panda is probably going to outcompete most of these for sound quality, amplifier quietness, and the actual quality of the response is just superior on that headphone. But similar to what I said with the Momentum review, that Drop Panda lacks a lot of the features. It lacks the total comfort of a lot of these Bluetooth headphones. And of course, active noise cancellation, transparent audio. It doesn't have all those things. So it really just depends on where your values lie. Now, mid-range is fairly recessed. It's not something that's going to pop out and grab you. It's actually a little bit darker on the upper mid-range than I was actually anticipating. It's quite it's not punchy. It doesn't grip you with the vocals. This is sort of a problem for certain genres. One, music that was mixed with not very punchy vocals to begin with. They seem really far away. They don't seem really strong for presence at all. And it also doesn't really deliver on the end of vocals that are really pushed forward. So if you listen to rap or singers like Adele or Sam Smith, where it's, primarily vocals coming at you the whole time, this doesn't really grip you with its integrity of those vocals. It kind of just is there. And it kind of just presents itself. You hear the vocalist, they're not particularly full or complete. They're just available. You hear what they're saying. You kind of get a taste of what they can do, but there's nothing really that I think is going to shock most people with how clear and how concise the vocals seem. Now, treble response is a lot of things. It's a little bit boosted to kind of complete that V shape, but it doesn't really have a whole lot of presence. It's definitely not very kind of sharp or defined. It lacks a little bit of completeness even. I wish it had a little bit more top end, like above 10,000 hertz, would provide a little bit more airiness and might actually open up some of the sound staging in this, but it doesn't really have anything after around about like 10K. It kind of peters out quite a lot after that, actually. Now, similar to every headphone that kind of sounds like this does have some of its own benefits of being extremely unfatiguing. It doesn't fatigue easily. You can listen to this thing for hours and you're going to be fatigue free. So if you want to go on an 8-hour plane ride and listen to music the entire time, you're probably going to be fine on this. And it's not going to really be kind of hurting your ears with the treble response, though the bass response might get a little bit annoying. But again, you can use the phone app to kind of dull that down a little bit if you want to. Okay, so overly specific audiophile critiques aside, is this a good headphone for its intended purpose? I think so. I don't think it sounds great, but that's kind of not the reason to use this. Like, the reason to use this is to go on planes, to block out office noise and kind of listen to something in the background, watch a movie, and just have, a pleasing, clear enough experience with this. I already gave you guys some options of what I think might be a little better. Drop Panda for sound quality and Bose 700 for a mix between sound quality, features, and comfort. Okay, my overall conclusion for this headphone. If you are a traveling customer, if that's what you're seeking for, this is a legitimate travel headphone or an office headphone, something that you're actively using to block out noise from other things, this is an excellent headphone for that. It's really great, especially that weird, tangible feeling that you get with using certain things. It doesn't feel built the best, but it just feels fun to use for that, and that's exactly what I would desire from a product like this. So I think that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys very much for watching. Until the next video, my name's Josh, signing off. Bye. Want you to be my vice. I'm all about your vibe. Me and you got that good, yeah, but I'm running like I'm lost in the woods, yeah. I don't really care, 'cause I just like it here.